So tell me, what is the historical context of when you were alive?
I was born on March 20th, 1515 in Avila, Spain. Many important things happened during my lifetime. First, Columbus had just arrived in the Western Hemisphere and had begun European colonization, fewer than 25 years prior to my birth. In addition, Luther had just sparked the Protestant Revolution with his 95 Theses. Also, during my lifetime, the Spanish Inquisition was going on. My unorthodox experiences often led to public scrutiny because people did not understand what I was going through.
So, can you tell me a little bit more about your life?
So as a young girl, many believed that I showed signs of a zealous nature. I often prayed and gave alms to the poor. I became very close to my mother, who shared views such as mine. Unfortunately, my mother died during my early teenage years. Later on, I lost my religious piety because I didn't have faith or trust anymore after my mother's death. Many had claimed that I had quite a unique charm about myself, and I found it quite easy to make friends. Although I have to say, I did become a bit rebellious later on, and would later call myself a great sinner during those years. It's embarrassing. I don't like to talk about it. At 16 years old, my father sent me to a convent. This was a new but quite strange experience for me. The convent sparked my passion for theology once again, and I decided to become a Carmelite nun. This decision was a turning point in my life. After this point, I began teaching others about the value of prayer and its importance in our lives. After my arrival at the convent, I was plagued by malaria, a disease which caused me severe pain and discomfort. During my pain, though, I experienced divine images and an inner sense of peace during this troubling time. After malaria had passed, I resumed my prayer life with a renewed vigor, a trust in Christ that everything could be okay, even amongst pain. But weirdly enough, when I disclosed the contents of my visions to others, people disregarded them as delusions from the devil. They didn't understand what I meant, and they thought I was just making these things up. This led me to lose confidence in both others, my prayer life, and my spiritual life.
That's very interesting. Can you tell me how you went back to a life of Christ?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Let me tell you. When I turned 41, I met a priest who inspired me to resume my prayer life. I showed a renewed vigor in Christ and in my faith. Over time, I became absorbed in deep contemplation, in which I felt an ever-growing sense of oneness with God. At times, though, I felt overwhelmed by the divine love and felt the illuminating grace of God washing my soul clean. Sometimes I felt so illuminated by God's grace that I began to levitate and float in midair. At these times, I asked my fellow nuns to hold me down, just to make sure I didn't float away. It's very important to stay grounded, you know. As to avoid a public display, though, this was necessary. People admired my outer charm and inner sincerity, but thought I was a bit cuckoo for, floating random times. My religious ecstasies, as people referred to them, were the source of great speculation and jealousy. Those who lived lives of faith were jealous of my experiences and wondered why they did not have the same ones. Other ones just seemed to think I was a bit crazy, off the loop. At 43, I decided I wanted to begin a new order, which dedicated itself to poverty and simplicity, one that was unique from the Carmelites and one that could be my own.
So tell me more about your order.
Well, as I said, this new order would dedicate itself to poverty and simplicity. When I first began telling others and my friends about this idea, people were skeptical, to say the least. My ideas were met with great opposition, but thankfully, after a while, this began to wane. The priests began to support me, and the endeavor was more accepted, you could say, by others. My convent made a prayer life easier and did not focus on inner asceticism and denial, but on the joyous divine love of God, of having something more, not necessarily restraining and having less.
Wow, that's very interesting. So can you tell me about the end of your life and the impact you had on the church?
So I spent much of the rest of my life traveling around Spain and beginning new convents for people. I faced difficult living conditions, though, and poor health, as I did not have a place to stay in all these places I traveled to. I died on October 4th, 1582, at 67 years old. I'm the patron saint of headache sufferers. In addition, I'm a doctor of the church. Some of my lasting legacy includes my 1566 book, Camino de Perfección, and my other one, written in 1580, The Castillo Interior, also known as Las Moradas, or the interior castle or the mansions. Throughout my lifetime, I wrote several collections of poetry, as I thought these were great ways of expression.
Wow, well, I think we're out of time, so as a way to wrap up this interview, can you read us a poem?
Well, I would love to do so. It goes a little bit like this. Let nothing upset you, let nothing startle you. All things pass, but God does not change. Patience wins all it seeks. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone is enough.